this guy is the quintessential streets won't forget, because his career doesn't get the plaudits or the flowers that the great strikers and the great players of his generation get. He was scoring in Serie B, then went to Zaragoza.
Diego Milito, nicknamed Il Principe, he played for Racing, Genoa, Zaragoza, and Inter Milan. In 2006, in the Copa del Rey semifinals, Milito scored 4 goals against Real Madrid while playing with Zaragoza. Then, jumping ahead to 2009 and the 2010 season, Milito scored 30 goals in his debut season with Inter and had a brace in the Champions League final against Bayern. Then, in 2020, Milito was inducted into Inter's Hall of Fame with 75 goals and 171 appearances for the club. And our guys just loved watching all of those highlights from Milito's playing career. Yeah, they were dancing, but I don't know. We'll get Chuck's take in a minute. Nico, why is Milito a good focus for our Streets Won't Forget segment?
So first off, I think obviously we focus on his time at Inter, but Diego Milito was much more than his time at Inter. Before he was Il Principe in Italian, he was El Principe in Argentina. He won the league title with Racing as a youngster, so committed to the cause. There was even a clásico between Racing and Independiente where his brother was captaining the other side, and he got in it. There was no brotherly love. They went at it. So it's a nice little anecdote that tells how committed this guy was, and his goal-scoring numbers in Europe once he left Racing at Genoa and Serie B. Got them promoted, then went to Zaragoza, where he finally reunited with his brother, by the way. He played with Diego Milito, his twin brother, at Zaragoza, got to that Copa del Rey final, lost. You know who was on the bench on the other team, didn't get playing time? Our U.S. men's national team coach, Mauricio Pochettino, was Español, who ended up winning that title. And then obviously, at Inter, we know the treble-winning side. Then he goes back to Racing. He wins the league title, much older at Racing. He comes back to the club of his soul, of his heart, and now he's the president of Racing. So it's a sensational storyline.
All right, look, Chuck, I know you're giving me the eye, so I'm going to make it quick. This guy, what he did in that 2010 season, I love the context and the background, but what he did in that 2010 season, there wasn't a defender. You go back to, forget Bayern Munich in that final, chopped up everyone, but what he did against Barcelona in the first leg of the semifinals, he made Gerard Piqué was chasing ghosts. That Barcelona backline could not live with them, and was the perfect balance for Samuel Eto'o and Wesley Sneijder. He was unplayable during that treble-winning season.
Yeah, I worked y'all up. I love Diego Milito. Well, you got me thinking about playing against your brother. What an intense rivalry that is, just growing up with your brother, your twin brother. That's your guy, but there's always that rivalry between twins. But this guy scored massive goals. These were big goals. I always think about the goals in that Champions League run. 31 years old to join an Inter Milan side and win a treble in your first season and be a top goal scorer when you're playing with Samuel Eto'o, when you're playing with young players like Balotelli and Arnautovic. Look, that's the iconic goal. The inside, outside, and still finishing with his right foot. It's just absolutely iconic. So I was working you guys up. Of course this is a Streets Won't Forget guy.
I thought you were still salty from the 2007 Copa America when his Argentina cooked your USA.
Sorry, just to give some context, our entire pre-production meeting, Charlie was arguing everybody tooth and nail. This is not a Streets Won't Forget candidate, only to say, kidding.
But again, that's what was shocking, because this guy is the quintessential Streets Won't Forget, because his career doesn't get the plaudits or the flowers that the great strikers and the great players of his generation get. He was scoring in Serie B, then went to Zaragoza. He had to replace David Villa at Zaragoza. That's when Villa goes from Zaragoza to Valencia, and he contributed significantly. And then
everywhere he's gone,
scored a lot of goals. And then went to Inter in that very first season.
But even though he's a Streets Won't Forget kind of player, I think the Inter Milan treble-winning team is a Streets Won't Forget team as well, because winning a treble, they're never mentioned with some of the most iconic teams. When you talk about treble-winning teams,
well, here's the look. I mean, look at some of these
mentioned
names,
among the greatest
stuff.
treble-winning squads. But I had the opportunity the absolute blessing to play against Lucio, against Julio Cesar, and against Mike Cohn in the Confederations Cup in the final against Brazil. And I remember the presence of Lucio. I remember how Mike Cohn, when he got the ball, was just bombing down the right side. And Julio Cesar is, in terms of a consistent goalie,
except against Germany in the semifinal of the World Cup, but yeah.
Yeah, just incredible players. So you could argue that Streets won't forget these two as well, because Mike Cohn, he's always left out of the conversation, because when you talk about Brazilian greats, Cafu, that's always been number one. But Dani Alves is a close number two. You could throw Marcelo in there as an outside back, Roberto Carlos as an outside back. So Mike Cohn keeps falling down. But he was an incredible player, and he has one of the most iconic goals as a right back, using the Trivela from the touchline to score at the near post. So
against North Korea in Ellis Park.
This is quite the team, and in the Copa America, which you mentioned before, Zanetti, Cambiaso, Milito, and Walter Samuel, I believe, were all in that 2007 Argentine side.
We're going to leave out Gordon Pandev as well, because Gordon Pandev had some big moments. He's not the same caliber Milito, but the architect of it all is Jose Mourinho. But just a little nugget on Milito. The guy scored in every single knockout round match leading up to the treble. Incredible. So I'm not forgetting them, and thank God you're not forgetting them, man, because we're about to have words in the parking lot.
Well, Milito also has had an impact on this current Inter team, and particularly their main man in Lautaro Martínez. Here's what Martinez had to say about Milito's influence from their time, Nico, at Racing.
Yeah, am I reading it in an Argentine accent or what?
If you'd like to, I can do it.
Yeah, no, he's lent me a hand when I needed it, and I learned a lot from him, and this is a moment that will always carry with me. It's incredibly symbolic, almost yin-yang, that in that 2010 treble winning side, the striker came out of Racing, and Lautaro Martínez is a guy that came out of Racing. Mm-hmm. And the only contradiction, I guess, between this parallelism between the two...
One has won a treble and one hasn't?
Sure, that's yet to be proven, because Lautaro Martínez could go on, is that for the national team, Milito was strikingly underwhelming. He scored one official goal. It was against Colombia in a Copa America. I believe 4 goals, but in the other 3 were in friendlies. He scored one official goal.
Count.
Sure, they still count. Lautaro Martínez scored a game-winning goal in the Copa America to give Argentina the title against Colombia just this past summer, and is a World Cup champion.
He also didn't have Carlos Tevez and Crespo and these type of players in front of him. So, Diego Milito is a phenomenal player, but when you have some of the icons that played in front of him in the international team, it's just about timing.